What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome to the first episode of Gun Guides for Cold War. Now, for those that aren't familiar, this is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats of every one of the weapons in the game. And this year is going to be a little bit different. I'm still going to follow the same general format, but since the game tells us a lot of the stats in game, and most of those stats are accurate, I don't have to focus quite as much on many of them, because you can just check them for yourselves. Having said that, I feel like there's still a ton of value with this series because you don't necessarily get a full comprehensive list of every one of the important stats in the game. And on top of this, a lot of the stuff you really need to see for yourself rather than just looking at the numbers, and that's what I do in this series. So in today's first episode, we're going to be kicking it off with the AK-47. And let's start it off with our damage profile. Our damage profile with this gun is 38 up close and 30 at a distance. And keep in mind with this game, the health value is 150 rather than 100, and this means it's going to be a 4 to 5 shot kill to the body. It's also worth noting that with the AK-47 and many of the other guns in this game, there aren't any extra body multipliers, so you don't deal any extra damage for shooting the upper torso, for instance, compared to shooting them in the foot. It's the same amount of damage. As for headshots though, we do get a pretty solid headshot multiplier at 1.4, and this means our headshot damage profile is 5342, which unfortunately for this gun means at close range you have to hit all 3 bullets to the head if you want to reduce the number of shots to kill. If you want to go from a 4-shot kill down to a 3-shot kill, every single bullet has to hit them in the head. And then at the longer ranges where it drops off, you still have to hit 3 shots to the head plus a shot to the body if you now want to get a 4-shot kill instead of a 5-shot kill. So while the multiplier is great, just the way the values work out here, it isn't super helpful to be aiming for the head with the AK-47. But moving on to our rate of fire, this is 600 rounds per minute, and what this means for our time to kill is in the 4-shot kill range, it's going to be a 300 millisecond time to kill, whereas our 4-shot kill range is a 400 millisecond time to kill. It's worth noting that up close, this is the fastest killing assault rifle in the entire game. Now, if we do manage to hit all 3 shots in a row to the head, we can get that 3-shot kill, like I said, and with this, our time to kill value will be just 200 milliseconds, which is very fast for this game. Moving on, let's have a quick look at bullet velocity and how it compares to the other assault rifles, and as you can see here, it has the lowest bullet velocity in the assault rifle category. And this means, especially at longer ranges, you might have to lead your shot a little bit, and sometimes the hit detection will just feel a little bit off in those longer range fights, unless you're using an attachment to boost your bullet velocity. But after that, let's have a look at our ranges, and as you can see here, our 4-shot kill range extends out to 38 meters, which is a pretty solid range. It's not great for the assault rifle category, but it's still a very solid range, and you can generally keep most of your gunfights within that range if you decide to navigate the map in that way. However, taking a look at the suppressors, the standard suppressor will reduce our range value by 15%, whereas the GRU suppressor will reduce it by 25%. Then looking at our barrels, the 18.2-inch VDV barrel, this one boosts our damage range by 100%, which is a huge boost. It's way off the charts here. And we see a similar, yet stronger story with the 18.2-inch takedown barrel. This is a 150% boost to your damage range. You would be hard-pressed to find a line of sight in the 6v6 maps that'll be far enough for you to drop off to a 5-shot kill with this barrel. But finally for barrels here, the 20-inch RPK barrel, this boosts our damage range by 50%, which is still an awesome boost, and definitely not a bad choice. Just taking a quick look at hardcore game modes, this gun is always going to be a 1-shot kill in hardcore unless you're shooting through some form of cover or if they have the armor kill streak active. And after that, let's have a look at our Hipfire, which, as you can see, it's pretty standard for the assault rifle category. The only assault rifle that's out of the ordinary here is the QBZ-83, which has a slightly larger Hipfire spread. Then let's take a look at our idle sway, which, as you can see here, our sight does move around a little bit while being aimed down sight. This is quite normal for the assault rifles though, and it doesn't really stand out here. But this brings us to recoil, which, as you can see here, the recoil is fairly manageable with the AK. It kicks upwards and then it starts leaning a little bit to the left, and then after that it starts to swing slightly back to the right. Overall, while it's not the most accurate assault rifle out there, it's really not that much of a problem. It's a pretty easy recoil pattern to manage, and you really shouldn't have any issues with this unless you're using attachments that significantly harm your recoil. Moving on, let's get into our handling stats. Our aim down sight time is 300 milliseconds, as it's stated in the game, and that is accurate. And our sprint out time is stated in-game to be 400 milliseconds, but the actual experience sprint out time that you'll get is more like 250 milliseconds, which is quite good for an assault rifle. Now, moving on, let's have a look at reload times. And with this, keep in mind, I use the reload add time. This is the actual practical reload time of a gun. And essentially with this reload time, it eliminates any unnecessary animations that go on with a reload. It's your actual reload time. And it's significantly faster than their stated reload time, which is 2.6 seconds. In reality, your reload time is just 1.32 seconds with the AK, and that is the fastest base reload time in the assault rifle category. Now, I'm also going to pop up all the reload times for the different magazines since they do change your reload time a little bit. And while I'm not going to really talk about them in too much detail, it is worth noting that that 50 round fast mag, that is an insanely fast reload time. That is nearly instant. But finally, for base stats, this brings us into our movement speeds, and our base movement speed is standard for assault rifles at 10.26 miles per hour, which is a 95% movement speed in this game. Then when we're sprinting, we can boost that up to 15.39 miles per hour, or 143%. And then our aim down sight movement speed is just 4.06 miles per hour, or 37.5%, which is quite slow. Now, moving on, this year with gun guides, I decided to add one extra section here where I'm going to look at the strengths and the weaknesses of the guns. And with the AK-47, the strengths are, it's got really high and consistent damage. It's the only assault rifle we have so far that can get a 4-shot kill to the body, which is really nice, and this also means that it has the fastest time to kill in the assault rifle category if we're looking at body shots. So that's another huge upside for the AK, and on top of that, we also have the fastest reload add time in the assault rifle category. So 3 great upsides with the AK. Now let's look at some of the weaknesses. First up, the range isn't great for an assault rifle, but it's also not bad, and this can be easily made up for with barrels. Next, it does have the slowest bullet velocity in the assault rifle category, and this is something you definitely have to pay attention to if you're trying to challenge people at longer ranges. You may want to have some attachments that boost your bullet velocity. And then finally, the AK-47 isn't really good for headshots. Like I said earlier, you have to land every single bullet to the head in order to reduce the number of shots it takes to kill up close, whereas for some of the other assault rifles, you only need one headshot mixed in with body shots in order for that headshot to make a difference. And with that, that pretty much wraps it up for all of the important base stats of the AK-47. However, there is one attachment here that I wanted to spend a little bit of time on because I've had people wondering how these attachments work. And with the AK-47, this is the 20-inch Spetsnaz RPK barrel. And the reason I want to focus on this is this actually increases the damage of your gun, which isn't normal for barrels in Call of Duty. So a lot of people are wondering, is it worth running this? So taking a look at the damage increase, our new damage profile is going to be 42-33. And with this new damage profile, it doesn't actually change the number of shots to kill to the body at all. What it does do is it now makes it so you only need 2 headshots mixed in with body shots to reduce the number of shots it takes to kill. So I like to think of it more like a high caliber attachment from previous Call of Duty games where it's really only going to be helping for headshots, not so much for body shots. And when it comes to this, it has some other upsides, but unfortunately, it significantly increases your recoil to the point where it will definitely affect your ability to hit your target, and therefore, I don't recommend this on the AK-47. A slight improvement to your headshot effectiveness just isn't worth a significant increase to your recoil, which is going to cause you to miss more shots in general. So with that, now it's time to get into some class setups that I'm really enjoying so far with the AK-47. And the first one I'm going to show you here is my favorite. This is my go-to AK class, and this is honestly one of my favorite class setups to use in the entire game at this point. And with this one, it's really designed to be a versatile stealth build. So with this, we've got the standard suppressor, which gives us that 100% muzzle flash concealment, but it hurts our bullet velocity and range a little bit. So we're going to make up for that with the 18.2-inch VDV reinforced barrel. This is the one that doubles our effective damage range and also gives us a nice little boost to our bullet velocity, which is great. However, that does come at the downside of slowing us down a little bit with our sprint speed as well as our aim walking movement speed. Next up, scrolling down to the underbarrel, I like just the standard foregrip to cut down on that horizontal recoil a little bit, because vertical recoil is really easy to control. Horizontal recoil, on the other hand, that's generally much more difficult to deal with, and this is why I like this attachment. It also has no downsides to it, so that's great. After that, for magazine, I just go with these standard 40-round mags. I used to go with the 40-round speed mags. I was using that for a little bit, but I found it was just decreasing my aim down sight time too much, and I like being a bit snappier, and I don't mind the slightly slower reload speed with this, especially since the reload add time on this gun is quite fast. So even though the stated reload time looks really slow with this, it's really not that bad at all. But finally, this leaves us with one more attachment, and this is the GRU Elastic Wrap, the final handle that you have access to. And this one is great because it improves our aim down sight time quite considerably. We also get a ton of flinch resistance, which isn't necessary by any means, but it's nice and it helps. But on top of that, you also have the ability to drop shot now with this gun. You no longer go into hipfire as you go prone with this, whereas you would if you weren't using this attachment, and I find that to be very useful. So yeah, that's the attachment setup for this particular build, and I really like it because it's nice and balanced, and it also keeps you off the radar, and it's really snappy as well, so you can play fairly aggressively with this. Next, we'll get into the rest of the class setup. I've just got a gallows shotgun on there as a secondary. Tactical is stim shot. That's kind of one of my crutches at this point. Lethal is a Semtex. I've been having a really good time with those lately. Field upgrade, we've got field mic, but you could put whatever you want on there. For a wild card, I really like perk greed, and I use it on most of my classes right now. And with this, we're going to be using flak jacket and tactical mask, so we can be aggressive, be on the objective, and not worry about stuns and nades and stuff like that too much. For our tier 2 perks, we've got Scavenger and Gearhead, and then finally for tier 3, we've got those stealth perks, Ninja as well as Ghost. And with that, that's it for my first class setup, and like I said, this is sort of my go-to. I absolutely love using this class setup, and I highly encourage you guys to give it a shot. I think you're probably going to like it. Now let's move on to the next one. And with this one's going to be designed more so for locking things down at longer ranges and just shutting down lanes with the AK. And with this, I like to use an optic. We're going to be using the Microflex LED. I don't like optics that zoom in too far, so that's why I just go with this particular one. Then for our muzzle attachment, we're just going to be using the standard muzzle brake, which will improve our vertical recoil a little bit without having any downsides, which is nice. Then for our barrel, it's the same barrel as the previous class setup, and that's just because this barrel is so good on the AK. The AK has a very slow bullet velocity for the assault rifle category, so anything to boost that is always great. And on top of this, we literally double our damage range, which is amazing if we're trying to lock things down at longer ranges. Next up for our body attachment, we're going to be using the standard mounted flashlight, and this just gives us a 20% reveal distance increase. However, right now at least, flashlights work at all ranges, so that 20% really means nothing. It just means those enemy nameplates are going to pop up if you aim at them at any range now. Then for underbarrel, we're using the Spetsnaz grip, which helps a ton with vertical and horizontal recoil, which is really nice. We're really trying to cut down on that with this class setup, and you can see here just how accurate this gun is with all of these attachments that I have on it. But after that, we've got the 50 round fast mag here, so we can treat this almost like an LMG, like we've got a ton of ammo to spare, and we can just light people up at really long ranges. For our handle, once again, we've got that GRU elastic grip. It's just got so many great upsides to it, so I'm going to use it on this class setup, just like the last one. And then finally for the stock, we've got the PKM stock, and with this one, it helps with our shooting movement speed as well as our aim walking movement speed, so we can strafe back and forth as we're firing, which I find to be very effective, especially at longer ranges. If you're challenging people that have guns with slow bullet velocity, they're going to have a very hard time hitting you if you're strafing back and forth at range. So this setup is completely stacked with attachments, so of course that does mean we are using the Gunfighter wildcard on this. For our secondary, I'm using a 1911. For our tactical, I'm using a decoy because, like I said, we're going to be hanging back, and this is great for drawing people out into your line of sight. So if you toss a decoy into a spot, you're going to draw players in toward that decoy, and then you can pick them off from a distance. Our lethal is a frag grenade because we can throw them a little bit further than most of the other equipment. Our field upgrade is an assault pack, and the reason for this is we're not generally going to be getting in close to the enemies, and therefore scavenger won't do us much good, and we want to keep getting ammo back, so this will just keep replenishing our ammo, which will help us go on longer streaks as well. And then for perks, we've got forward intel, we've got gearhead, and finally we've got ninja on here. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this second option for a class setup for the AK. This thing is very, very accurate. It's got a great time to kill on it, and you're able to challenge people at very long ranges super effectively. Just keep in mind, it's not really made for aggressive play, so the aim down sight time and the sprint out time is quite slow on this, and you have to factor that in with your play style. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for this first episode of Gun Guides for Cold War. Now, for those of you guys that stuck around through the entire video, I've got a little treat for you. This time around with Cold War, I've decided I'm going to make my own personal stat sheet public. So it'll be great as a quick reference so you can see all the guns compared to each other. A bunch of the stats in there are taken directly from the in-game menus. Many of them are personally hand-tested by me. Drifter also helped out a little bit with some of these values. And I'm going to do my best to keep these updated as time goes on as well. So I will leave a link to that in the description down below. I really hope you guys appreciate the fact that I'm going to be sharing this with you. Normally, I like to keep that stuff to myself, but I figured this year, since the game is showing us many of the stats anyway, I might as well give you guys something for a quick reference. And with that, I'd like to hear from you guys in the comment section below. What do you think about the AK-47 in Cold War? Personally, it's one of my favorite guns. I just really love the versatility of it. I just feel comfortable with this gun in my hands in almost any situation. It can be at point blank range or across the map. I just feel good with the AK-47, and it's just a very consistent and easy to use gun. If you enjoyed this episode, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more gun guides if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.